be happy to have you. With that, I think that's all the announcements I have for right now. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Kristin Feeback. She is the president and chief executive officer of ComCare, which is the 988 call center for Missouri. And 988, if you haven't heard yet, is similar to 911. It's a number you can call in an emergent situation or a crisis situation for mental health and behavioral goings on. And it's really, Dr. Feeback will tell us more about that, but it's a really great resource that we are lucky enough to have. She's representing the Missouri side, but 988, of course, is available nationwide. Okay. And so the call center responds to emotional crises and provides mental health support. Dr. Feeback also owns Heartland Healthcare Consultants and provides social support services to long-term care facilities in Kansas, including training on dementia and caring for residents. So you can see why I thought she would be an ideal speaker for our program today. Dr. Feeback has a Bachelor of Science in Communication Disorders from Fort Hays State University, master's degree from Wichita State University, and her Doctor of Psychology is from Cal Southern University. And those of you who have been on the weekly webinar for the last few weeks have noticed that I have shouted out my fellow Southern Californians when we have them speaking. And I mean, what can I tell you? All the best people are from California. I have spent time there. So it's my pleasure to have Dr. Feeback representing the Californians again. A couple more things I'll tell you about her. She is deeply passionate about individuals getting their mental health needs proactively met with optimal solutions and care. She's a driven advocate for patients and teams that she leads. She provides support and knowledge based on more than 20 years of experience. And I have had the pleasure of talking with her a couple of times, and she is just a wealth of information. So with that, enough from me. I will turn it over to Dr. Feeback with my great gratitude for your being here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And I just want to say thank you for having me. And so I will go ahead and start, if that's okay with everybody. Again, much like Kelly talked about, I do have a background. I would say probably at the age of 16 is when I really started going into facilities, and I volunteered calling bingo at a nursing facility right down the street. I've always had a passion for the geriatric population. I have always had the utmost respect for people that are older than me, and really respect the fact that they have more wisdom. So that passion started when I was very young. And basically, I knew in my career when I started that I definitely wanted to get into mental health. So I started off my schooling doing that. And then shortly after I worked as a clinical therapist for a while, I decided to go back and get my nursing home administrator license. And I think that's important to say in that really when I started getting into nursing facilities, that's when I really started actually working more directly with people that have Alzheimer's and dementia. And it really gave me a perspective on family members that are dealing with loved ones that have Alzheimer's and dementia. On a personal note, my grandmother had Alzheimer's. And then as we get later on in the presentation, I'm going to talk to you about my most recent experience in my current situation in which my dad has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we're currently working through some of the challenges that has come with from that. But what's been interesting for me is having a background being a nursing home administrator, but then also having a degree in psychology and really understanding the anatomy and physiological part of the brain and how that works and what that looks like. And then having the direct experience in working with people where, there's changes that are occurring in their brain and different things like that, especially in the geriatric population. So that's a little bit about my background and stuff. I'll kind of start just on a personal note. From a career perspective first, when I was in the nursing facilities, when I started being an administrator, I have a lot of different experiences working with families. And one of the things that I really recall hearing that really resonates with me now as a family member going through it with my father is, they get a sense of the person that has Alzheimer's and not the person that they were many years ago or even as recent as a year ago. And I just remember sitting in my office with a number of family members, and there was some grieving that took place there, because while their loved one was of course still around and engaging and interacting, they found that there was a true personality change, but then also a behavioral change. And I just remember in those situations listening more than anything, because I think that's really important. So that's really where I started. And then of course, working with our staff in nursing facilities. As Kelly said, I do have a consulting firm in which I don't actually go out and do the consulting anymore because I have a full-time position, but I do, working with staff and training people that are working with people with dementia and Alzheimer's is equally as important. Because there's a lot of things that are evolving. There's a lot of research that's coming out, new techniques. There's always different medications that are coming out. All different kinds of things are evolving, and trying to keep up with all that is important. But also when you are in a position where you are directing or assisting people that are working directly with people that have dementia and Alzheimer's, it's important that they have the utmost education in terms of techniques and practices, evidence-based practices to utilize in working and living with somebody that has Alzheimer's and dementia. So first of all, my grandmother, on a personal note, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I remember going over to her house a lot. And I didn't quite know at the age of, at a young age, what Alzheimer's was, but I remember some things that she would do that I found kind of interesting, like she would continuously wash her coffee pot, or she would always misplace things. And I would go to my grandparents' house in the summers, and I noticed every summer things started becoming a little more prevalent, where like the 3 summers before my grandmother passed, my grandpa was having to help assist her with eating and helping redirect her from going outside when it was really cold out. Or additionally, my grandmother would misplace her medications a lot. And so I remember helping my grandfather help trying to find where she placed those at. And then I remember other times where there was then an alarm on the door one summer when I went down, and I was kind of confused by that. And so anyway, I remember those pivotal times growing up with my grandmother, seeing her during different breaks with school and stuff, and not really understanding what was going on at that point because I was younger, but noticing the change and the difference. And then when I was 10 years old, I lost my grandmother, and my grandfather decided that he wanted to take care of my grandma. And I know that was really difficult, but he did not want to place her in a facility. He wanted to take care of her. And so I just remember that being a lot on him. And I remember him talking to my dad a lot about not getting a lot of sleep because he was up a lot trying to make sure that my grandmother would stay in the house and not get outside and get into some safety issues. But additionally, I remember there were times where we would go down and my dad would ask my grandpa to leave to just go take a walk. And so there are some pivotal things, even as a young child, remembering some of those things. The other thing then, moving into my dad, because that's a story within itself. I shared it with Kelly. So my dad and I had always had kind of a strenuous relationship as I got into being a teenager and then young adulthood. And about 8 years ago, my dad and I quit communicating. And it wasn't necessarily that any pivotal thing happened, other than he was kind of a self-centered person, and he would never really ask about my children or ask what was going on in my family's life. And basically, I was telling Kelly that I talked to my dad one day. I'd always check on him, like call him once a month and just make sure he was doing okay. And at this point, he had moved to Arizona, and I was still in the Kansas City area. And I said, Dad, the ball's kind of in your court here. I call you all the time, and sometimes you act distracted, like you don't have time to talk to me or what have you. And so I'm just you've got my phone number, and I'm just going to go ahead and put the ball in your court. And if you want to have a relationship with me and want to know what's going on with the kids, and because I was constantly inviting him out to our house, and he would always have something come up. And I said, you've got, where I live, you've got my phone number. And so the last time I talked to my dad was 8 years ago. But then in March, I got a call one day. This is March of 2023. So again, it had been 8 years. I got a call from his significant other named Ramona. She had basically, her and my dad were living in Arizona, and she had called me. And I want to share my screen because I feel like I want you to actually see my dad. So let me get this here. So this is my dad. This is Lyle. I got him, I took that of him about a month ago, and we were going to do his favorite thing, which is get a chocolate shake. So anyway, that's what we do. That's our thing. So I just wanted to share that. But anyway, I had gotten a call from Ramona. So we're going back to March of 2023. I'd gotten a call from Ramona, and she was very frantic on the phone. And Ramona told me that, Kristin, I know that you haven't talked to me or your dad in 8 years, but I want you to know what's going on with your dad. And she said that basically he'd been struggling with signs and symptoms of dementia, and he had been progressing, and had fully gotten a diagnosis of Alzheimer's at this point, because she had been taking him to the doctor. And he was struggling with his medications. He would start hiding them. He would leave for long periods, and he'd be gone from the house for long periods of time. There were a few times where my dad called her and said, "Hey, I don't know where I'm at right now." So anyway, so this had been occurring within the last 5 years. It had really progressed. And so that's when she started taking him to the doctor and such. On the phone in March, she told me that she also has some health issues, and she's not able to take care of my dad anymore, because she said, I want you to know what happened last night. This is why I'm calling you this morning. And so what my dad did was, my dad had woken up that day and said that there were people in the house. And so, but couldn't be descriptive of, who and where, anything. So my dad called 911, and an officer came out and walked through the house with my dad. And my dad led the officer to a dresser in his bedroom, and said that they're actually, the people that were in his house were in the dresser. So the police officer was very nice and gentle with my dad, and basically said, Mr. Dawson, we can't find anybody. We believe that everything is safe here. So we're going to go ahead and go on. Well, my dad called about 3 hours later and said that basically that there had been some officers out at the house. They hadn't found anybody, but he still believes that there are people in the house. And at that point said that he had some guns, and that he was going to take care of it himself. So basically that turned into 5 cop cars showing up. And one of the officers that was talking with Ramona's trying to tell this officer that, hey, he's just got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and That's what this is. And the officer's like, well, then we need to take him because now he's saying that he has guns and that he's a safety issue at this point. And so anyway, she promised that she would lock up the guns and begged for them not to take not to take my dad, because what they wanted to do with him, and again, this is in Arizona, they wanted to take him into a psychiatric, like have him get a psychiatric check, which he's got dementia. So anyway, so long story short, and I'm trying not to go on here, but it's really important that you get context and you understand like this whole story and how it's evolved. So that is what led her to call me the following morning. And basically, that was when I really got a sense, especially when I heard her on the phone, that this had been going on for so long and she had been trying to take care of it on her own, amidst having other health issues, and was just tired, very tired and didn't know what to do. And Ramona remembered that, I've had some history in working with geriatrics and then also the psychology piece and all that. So what ended up happening is initially she had told me that she's going to put my dad on a plane and said that you're going to need to take care of him. And I said, I don't think that would be a good thing, putting him on a plane. I said, what needs to happen is I will go ahead and get a flight and I'll come out there. And I guess I just want to say all this in that, it was really hard because, for 8 years I hadn't talked to him and had literally, I'm trying to think of how to say it. Like I had moved on and, so to get a call like that was just out of the blue, was very surprising, but also there was a lot of emotion behind it. So what I found in this experience and what kind of made me stop and pause to make a decision was to put all my emotions aside and realized that at the end of the day, whether it was my dad or somebody else, needed help. So I'm sorry, Kelly, I thought that maybe I wouldn't get emotional, but so anyway, what I did is I got on a plane 3 days later and I called Ramona every day to check on my dad, and then actually asked Ramona to put my dad on the phone. And that was really interesting because my dad even sounded different on the phone than from when I talked to him 8 years ago, of course. Like his voice was even different. So I told my dad I was coming to see him, and I thought it was odd that he didn't ask me why or what's been going on for the last 8 years, Instead, he just is like, oh, okay, well, that's good. So anyway, so I came down, and I don't know at this point, do you want me to stop and ask if there are any questions, Kelly, or what, or do you just want me to kind of keep going with the story?
Kristin, I mean, even having heard some of this before, I'm super touched to keep hearing it. So if you're willing to share, I'm happy to.
Oh yeah.
I will ask you I will watch the chat. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to use the chat, but please continue.
Okay. So anyway, I ended up, I called every day for 3 days until I could get down there because I realized there was a crisis definitely there. The other thing that I did is I called 988. And when I get at the end of this presentation, I'm a huge advocate of 988, not just because I run one of the call centers for 988, but because I know it works. And I've called it 3 times. The 3 times are on behalf of other people, but the first time I called it was in this situation. The reason why I called 988 was because I was totally unfamiliar and wanted to be prepared to, when I went down to Arizona, to know exactly what resources were down there. Okay. And so I dialed 988. Right now, 988 is based off your area code. And so I asked to be transferred to a 988 call center in Arizona. So when I got on the phone, very, very resourceful. I talked to a gentleman. I explained to him what was going on. I also explained to him that I had a flight scheduled to be down there in a couple days. And I wanted to know exactly what the resources were that were available in Arizona for me. Not only mental health, but more so what kind of geriatric services, what does it look like now that the police have been involved because they came to his house? What does the Medicaid system look like? So I had a lot of questions. Basically the call taker on the phone gave me a list of resources in Arizona. And so a couple of those resources I called. But I just felt it to be extremely resourceful because I did not know anything about the state of Arizona and what they had to offer, and especially with Alzheimer's and dementia care. So basically I got on the plane, went down, and I stayed at my dad's house for 4 days. And I didn't know at that point when I first came what the plan was going to be. But personality wise, my plan is sometimes I don't have a plan when I walk into a situation. I've dealt with crisis for so long in my career that I usually don't get worked up. I just kind of take things as it comes and execute decisions accordingly. And so basically I went down there and I saw why she called me. What I walked into was my dad was very confused on a daily basis. He left the home one time for 2 hours when I was on a conference call, and Ramona had decided to go take a nap back in the bedroom. So that really scared me. And so I walked around outside for a while and I found him, and he had said that he went to go get the mail and then couldn't remember where he was going after that. So he at least was close. I also found out that she was allowing him to drive, and it was very unsafe. I wanted to see for myself how he drove. So we went to a parking lot, an area where there wasn't any people. And I was like, Dad, I don't think it's good for you to drive anymore, which was a very difficult conversation to have with him. But I just said, why don't you, while I'm down here, let me drive? If that's okay, I'll let you tell me where you want me to go and what have you. So he was at least okay with that. He just wanted to make sure he would be able to go places. But what I did when I got there is I set an appointment with his doctor. And this was a doctor, his primary care doctor, that he had gone to for the last 5 years. And I wanted his primary doctor, number one, to be made aware that I was in town. But also I wanted to talk to the doctor, and I wanted my dad present. And then also Ramona was involved as well in that doctor's appointment. So anyway, we went to the doctor's appointment, and so I went ahead and they did a mini mental on my dad, mini mental exam, and he did not do as good as he did. I think they did it last quarter. So they did it 3 months prior. So he had it showed that he definitely had more of a loss of memory, his problem solving skills. And then they also found that his short-term memory was really struggling more. And then when it came to his longer term memory, he was doing okay with that, which is pretty common, of course. So when the doctor stepped out, the doctor went ahead and took my dad into the lobby area and then came back and wanted to talk to just me and Ramona. And at that point, Ramona broke down in front of the doctor saying that she wants me to take my dad back to the Kansas City area to be with his family, which is just my sister and me, and then my kids and my sister's kids. And she said that if we were to check him, or we were to have him go into a facility, because at that point his safety was being compromised and what have you, she said due to her own health issues that she would not be able to ever go see him again, which again, I didn't know his significant other very well. I think there were some other dynamics going on there without getting into the weeds too much. But anyway, from that appointment and just listening to Ramona, I found that, she really didn't want much involvement in my dad's care, which is concerning to me because he needed somebody to be. So what we did from that point is the doctor prescribed, my dad was having issues taking consistent medication. So I went ahead and I said, well, from here on out, I'll go ahead and start monitoring his meds. And I asked the doctor if they could give my dad something a little bit more for agitation. And I was really familiar with a lot of our, when I was working in nursing facilities, at least some of the ones that I were going to in Kansas, and then also being familiar with psychoactive medication in general, I asked if we could get some risperidone for my dad. So the doctor agreed, and we went ahead and got him on risperidone. And then following the appointment and me having another side conversation with the doctor alone, I just felt like it was best, and what the plan was going to be was for me to take my dad back. So I had one day until my flight. My dad and I's flight took off, and during that one day, I started getting things ready. I asked Ramona to start packing his bag, and then I went ahead and started to try to find a facility, a memory care facility for my dad. And I know that's a really hard decision for some people, but so I'm 45, I'll be 45, and then my sister's 40, and we both work and we both have kids that I've got a son that's 22 that's married, so he's gone and out of the house, but then I have a 17 and a 15-year-old daughter that are in high school, and it is like every night activities. And so, when I was thinking of and knowing that I've been in skilled nursing facilities for so long, I really felt like a facility would be good for my dad. I didn't think that he was quite ready for a skilled nursing facility, but definitely for like an assisted living where he would still have a little more freedom, and he was able to have his own stuff, like furniture and stuff in there. And also it's not as restrictive of care. So anyway, so I went ahead and called the facility, believe it or not, that was right behind my house in the neighborhood that I live in. Literally, you can see the back of my house from that facility. And I explained the situation to the facility, and I said, I really need my dad close to me. I don't know him very well at this point, and I don't know how he's going to take being in an Alzheimer's facility, but I'm really hoping that you can take him. And so basically, it was definitely a great thing. They said they would take him, and I told them that I would have to apply for Medicaid. My dad and Ramona's financial situation is they were not legally married. And so, and they had a reverse mortgage on their house. And then the only asset my dad had was his car. They had no CDs together, nothing. There was no financial, he did not have any financial assets or anything like that. So anyway, I knew I was going to have to apply for Kansas Medicaid. And so anyway, what we ended up doing is me and my dad got on the flight, and the more time I spent with my dad, I kind of noticed a few things, and I definitely utilized a lot of my experience that I had in the past. So this definitely helped. But my dad would kind of say things that that didn't make sense. And he would ask the same questions over and over. And one of the things that he would obsess a lot about was his medications, if he took it or not. And so what I found with him is I would answer the questions, but I'd also do a lot of redirection. And then also I made sure that all of my answers back to him were affirming and very ensuring, because I don't think my dad had been to an airport for a long time, and he didn't know me very well. And all this was new. And all he did know was Ramona, and he knew his house, and he knew his car, and he knew briefly, the area that he lived in. And I took him outside of everything, including him not knowing me very well. And so I'm self-aware enough to know that, okay, so here's my situation, and I've got to remember this is all new for him. And I had to consistently tell myself that, even with the continuous questions over and over. What I found also with my dad is my dad remembered me, but my dad remembered me as a younger person. So he knew that Kristin was his daughter, but he didn't realize, like he asked me one time, he's like, well, you're like 20, aren't you? And I said, no, Dad, I'm going to be 45 in September. And he kept thinking that my kids were younger and all that. And so, you know, I don't know. I guess I have the patience enough where I had to answer those questions a lot. But I also, again, kept reminding myself, like, he just doesn't know. I mean, this is all new for him and all that. Anyway, our flight went okay. The other thing I picked up on too is, for the first time in a long time, my dad was telling me he loved me. And so that was like weird. So, and then the other thing was, I think he knew that I was there to really take care of him. So that was important. So anyway, we got off the plane and I took him back to my house, and I called my sister. I had told my sister all along what was going on, and my dad hadn't talked in 20 years. So I asked her if she wanted to be a part of his life, and she said that she would because of me. So anyway, my sister ended up coming to our house when I brought my dad home, and it was really emotional for her too, because she hadn't seen him in a long time. And what was weird about that was he picked up right where he left off with her too. So he didn't remember that they hadn't talked for so long. And I mean, he kind of realized it had been a while, but he was confused on how old she was too. And so, so we took my dad out to dinner, and that was really nice. My husband went, my kids, and in the meantime, I had been planning on, oh my gosh, we're over time. Are you okay with that, Kelly? Or
It's okay, Kristen. People can, stay or go as they choose.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a minute, if
Okay.
you'd like. And I will just say, on behalf of everybody who's listening, thank you so much for being so open about your story. There's a comment in the chat that says, thank you for being so vulnerable, and this is so meaningful. And there's a question in the chat from Michael, and Michael says, if it's not too crying, in retrospect, do you think this had been going on gradually for years and might have been a contributing factor to your separation from your dad? I will let you answer that as you want. And I will just remind everybody that there are so many wonderful messages I think we can take from Kristin's story. One of which, if I can be so bold as to say, is please take advantage of your resources. That's exactly what 988 is for. That's what we're here for at the KU-ADRP, our cognitive care network, our memory clinic. We have so many resources, and we don't ever want you to feel like you have to do this all by yourself.
Right.
So good. I'm glad Kristin is affirming that. If you wouldn't mind, Kristin, maybe a few more minutes to
yeah, I'll just go ahead and sum some things up, because we're about to that point. Thank you, Kelly. So yeah, basically, we went ahead and we went ahead and took my dad out to eat. My dad stayed at my house that night, and then the next day was the day we were going to take him up to the facility. I did lie to my dad and told him that we were going to go get another assessment. Because if I told him that we were going to go there and check him into an assisted living, I don't even know how I would get him up there, to be honest with you. Because my dad did make references that, see, I'm okay. I still got it. I can still remember things. So I think he's to that point where he knew that he was forgetting, but then owning that or accepting that was hard for him. So there was a lot of denial in there. Oh yeah, I agree with you, Amy. 100%. So anyway, we took my dad into the facility. Once we got him there, my sister and I sat down, and my husband sat down, and I told him, I said, Dad, I've lied to you. I said, I did that because I felt like that was necessary in the situation, but I want you to know where you're at and why. And that was really hard. So basically what he said was, I trust you. I know that I'm kind of having some issues with memory, and if you think that this is best for me. So, that's what he said. And the facility was great. I had a long conversation with the administrator and a couple of the staff, getting them to know my dad. Like I told them verbally who my dad was. My dad loves Elvis. He loves chocolate shakes. He loves to walk. He loves watching videos on his iPad of crashes. I don't know why that appeals to him, but he likes watching crashes. He was doing that when I was there at his house. And I was just trying to prep the facility for as much information as I knew about him, but also told him I don't know a lot about him at this point. I knew who he was prior to some of this, but and prior, like I said, he just was a very selfish, self-centered man. And actually, dementia and Alzheimer's had made him a loving, very kind person, like a complete personality change. So he got used to the facility. The only issue that we've had is he tried to elope because he thought that he needed to go to the airport to get back to Arizona. And so then after the elopement, they put him back on the memory care unit, which was a part of the facility. And so he's been back there. I go and see him every other day. Sometimes I have to spread that a little bit more with my job and with my kids' events, but I have a really good relationship with the staff. There are times where like I'll bring a shake in for my dad, but I'll also bring some shakes in for the staff because I want them to know that they're appreciated. CNAs and nurses in nursing facilities don't get told that enough. Even when I was running one, I try to do it as much as I could, but there's always crazy things that happen, and a lot of times those positions don't get recognized. And so as a family member, I just try to make them feel very important. And I feel like that'll also rub off on how they treat residents, and including my dad. So anyway, he now has quit and he doesn't talk about Ramona anymore. He doesn't talk about a plane ticket anymore, getting back to Arizona. I take him out for an outing at least twice a week. I have him join our family gatherings. This last Father's Day was the first Father's Day in 15 years that I've had with him, and it went really good. And he was around my sister too, and our kids. And that was really cool. That had not happened in a long time. So anyway, so a lot to be taken from the story, but yeah, the other thing that I think it's worth saying is, so my dad was married 3 times, and all 3 of his marriages, I mean, I guess this one's considered a marriage, even though it wasn't legal, but she was with him. They were together for 28 years. His desire for companionship never has changed, and he has developed a relationship with another female resident there at the facility, and they have a close relationship. Now he wants to get married again, but I'm like, Dad, it's let's give it a little bit longer. So anyway, but that's how he's always been throughout his life. He's always liked companionship and having somebody there. So anyway, trying to think what else. I communicate a lot with his APRN that's there at the facility. He's just finishing up. He had shingles. I had to have my sister, because I was out of town on business, take him to an urgent care clinic. And so now he's being treated for that. He's really upset because him and his girlfriend can't, until he gets completely treated, can't get together. But I go in and see him, and it's become a great relationship.
Kristin, thank you so much. I know most people have their cameras off, and that's fine, but I think that if you could see everybody's faces, I think you would have seen a lot of nodding along and a lot of me too, and a lot of, oh, it's not just me, which is affirming. It's a tough story a lot of the times, and that's why it's so generous of you to be willing to share not just your professional expertise, but your personal expertise and experience with us. So again, on behalf of everyone, I thank you so much. And
would have also seen a lot of tears.
yeah,
Tears. You should write a book or a movie. My goodness.
yes.
Yeah, my husband and I have talked about that. Just
it's so kind of you. We typically shy away from recording very personal things, stories like this, because we want people to feel safe. But I'm so glad you have been willing to talk to us today and to record it, because I have some folks I think would really benefit from watching this another time. So
sure. Do you want me to talk about 988 really fast?
Yeah, if you would, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so really quick, I alluded in my story about 988. 988 is phenomenal. It's the new crisis suicide hotline number, and I want to stress crisis. And so a lot of people ask, well, what is a crisis? So a crisis can be anything you want it to. I shared with what my crisis was because I didn't know and I needed resources quickly. Somebody else's crisis could be they have a neighbor in their front yard that's, delusional, saying some things, and you're trying to figure out how to help the neighbor. It's definitely a mental health issue. There's no safety issues there. So really you can call on behalf of yourself, or if you are in a situation where you have a family member or a friend, or you have a friend's child or something, anybody can call it. When you call it, there's a prompt that comes on. You call 988 on your phone, or you can text it, or you can chat it. Okay. So, and it's nationwide. You can be anywhere in the world and do this, or anywhere in the United States and do it. So you'll get a prompt right when you call it. If you, the first one is if you're a veteran. So that means that they will transfer you to somebody that has direct experience working with vets. 2 is the LGBTQ community. If you hit 2, then somebody will have some expertise in working with that community. And then I believe they added a 3rd one, and that was for Spanish speaking, but I'm not 100% on that. However, we do have that option now. But anyway, within 10 to 12 seconds, immediately somebody comes on the phone. It is a mental health professional. And so they will ask you 2 questions, and it's just to assess where you're at with your safety. If you do have some safety concerns, or there's some immediate safety concerns, then 911 will have to get involved. But after asking those 2 questions, generally what we do is then we start listening to what your crisis is and how to best get you resources. 98% of the calls we get through 988, we deal through warm line talking. 1% of the calls we do if the person's agreeable, or if the person asks for a mobile crisis team to come visit them, then they will, if the crisis it's a necessity to deal more in person. And then the other 1% is when we do have to get 911 involved, because there's immediate safety issues. So it works. Those people that are listening, please tell everybody about it. We've got billboards now down here in the metro area, because I'm working with a lot of media people right now just for awareness. I just want people to know about it because it works. So if you have any other questions, Kelly can share my information, my phone number, my email, but please get that out. It's a huge resource.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kristin.
Thank you.
Have the most important number I think everybody should remember is 988, of course. If you'd like to have Kristin's contact information, feel free to send an email to myalliance@kumc.edu. You can reply to your My Alliance email. And send us a note, and I'll be happy to share that with you. Kristin, you're on my list and in my heart forever, and I think we'll I'll be the first to say we'll probably have to invite you back to post some more good stuff another time. So I hate to end because I'm just so
Okay.
good at this, but I have to go do the family series for one thing.
Okay.
So I'm gonna wrap
Thank
this up.
you, Kelly.
You're so welcome. Thank you, everybody. Next Thursday, we are going to have a presentation on the Minds in Motion art program at the Nelson Atkins Museum. If you don't know about this, this is where folks with memory loss and their caregivers can go and have a docent guided tour at the Nelson of the art exhibits there. And it's really exciting and lovely, and we'll hear about that next Thursday. We'll have some more information about that in the next My Lines newsletter. So watch for that on Monday. Contact me if you want Kristin's information or if you have any questions. And Kristin, thank you again so much for today.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. Thank you, everybody.
Take care,
I think
everybody.
this was the best, most pertinent presentation we've had. Thank you both so much.
Oh, thank you.
Truly.
Excellent. All right, everybody. I'm scaring myself away. Bye-bye.